Nicole L. Turner.
Well, that made me sound like I was somebody special. Thank you. It's such an honor to be asked to come and speak for Women's History Month. So when you hear the topic, celebrating women in the workplace, celebrating women in the federal workplace, you look around this room, there's so many women working together in the workplace. But unfortunately, we have this problem called competition. And so my topic for today is that women in the workplace, we need unity and not competition. Because we accomplish so much more if we're working together. So there are about 70 million women in the workplace, which is about 49% of the workforce is women. All those women coming together, we should have collaboration. We should be working together to help one another achieve. The work environment should not be a place where there's jealousy, where there's gossip, where you're trying to tear down somebody else for your own success. We already know that women in the workplace, for every dollar that a man makes, the woman makes 72 cents. When you look at the heads of organizations and corporations, it's majority male. So we as women need to come together and uplift one another and motivate each other. So when she mentioned my book that's coming out, it was supposed to be released this month, but it's pushed back to April. Detox your organization, because a toxic organization, a toxic workplace affects the bottom line. How many of you have worked in an environment that had toxicity? Most of us. And so my first book, Detox Your Life, Building a Healthy Relationship with Yourself and Others, it's really focusing on the individuals, helping you overcome those mental and emotional toxins that are keeping you stuck. Because if you have the individual toxicity, what happens when you bring that to the workplace? It affects how you interact with your peers. It affects if you're a supervisor. It affects how you interact with your employees. So it's really about we as women, and not to exclude the men in the room, and I'm so happy to see men in the room for Women's History Month, because men should celebrate women all the time. But why is that funny? Oh yeah, we are worth celebrating, because without us there would be no them. So we're worth celebrating. Yes. Kudos for the women. Not excluding the men. So I wanted to make this somewhat interactive for you guys. So I want somebody to tell me of a time where, and don't call any names, don't give any specific information where people in the room may know who you're talking about, but give me a time where you had a very difficult work situation with another woman and how you were able to turn that work environment around to something positive. Does anybody have an experience? Yes, Miss Martha.
My supervisor was a toxic person.
She's giving it to her.
My supervisor was a toxic person. I would come in every day and she would give everybody work except for me. And I couldn't understand why she was giving me any work. So I turned around to one of the ADC's secretaries and I said, I don't understand. How come I'm not stupid? How come she's not giving me work? She gives everybody work but me. And I found out that she was prejudiced. And I didn't know it. So the ADC secretary, she went in and talked to her supervisor. And she said, I want to start giving Martha work. And she said, well, this person's probably 6 feet under now. And she said, well, Mary's her supervisor. He said, I don't care. If she wants to work, you know she can do the job. You give her work. So the ADC secretary came out and told my supervisor that she was going to start giving me work. Well, if she gives you work, little Miss Martha, you just know who your supervisor is. I said, and I know who my supervisor is. So, and the ADC secretary started giving me work, and within 4 months they're going to give me a promotion.
Nice. So,
but you know what the supervisor did?
What did she do?
She rolled up the paperwork and poured coffee all over it and hid it in her cabinet.
Sorry. That wasn't a good example of something that became positive, because it sounds like that remained negative.
But you know what? Within 2 weeks, oh yeah, What they found out, the lady who took me over, she went in my supervisor's office and she found the paperwork while my supervisor was in there talking to the ABC. I'm not gonna tell you, when he closed the door, I'm not gonna tell you what he said. But I got that promotion within 2 weeks.
Well, congratulations. Some situations, unfortunately, cannot become positive ones. Is there anybody who's had a negative situation, a woman who's had a negative situation in a work environment with another woman, and you employed some techniques and it became a positive working relationship? Yes.
I had one. A manager had me set to replace somebody who was leaving under not good circumstances. And the way that it was set up, it was kind of for us to become rivals. And we kind of talked on a personal level and found a whole lot of things that we had in common, and we stayed in touch after we both left that company.
Great.
We ended up being allies, and she helped me and gave me tips on what I needed to do to be successful.
And that's really good. And that's one of the things I want to touch on is mentorship. So oftentimes in the workplace, women don't seek out mentors. And your mentors don't have to be another woman. But if you see a woman that's in a position that you want to be in or is accomplishing things that you want to accomplish, it's okay to reach out to that person and ask, hey, are you mentoring? Are you open to mentoring anybody? Will you mentor me? Because that person who may at first have been kind of giving you the cold shoulder, now that they know that you see them in a way that kind of puts them at a certain level where you think they have something they can add value to your life, in some instances, more times than not, they'll be open to that because it does something for them as well by mentoring you. It feeds their soul by mentoring you. So one of the ways to diffuse the competition and the issues in the workplace amongst women is to try to forge relationships that are like mentorships. Some of the positive things you can get from diffusing the competition is collaboration, because we all have to work together. There's not one of us in here that doesn't have to work with somebody else, correct? And some of those somebody else's are women. So it's very important to try to get rid of what's sometimes called the covert competition. When you hear covert competition, what do you think covert competition is? Hidden. Covert operations, hidden. Those are the things that people do behind the scenes. Like, they may appear to be cool with you, but at the same time, they're trying to sabotage you. Or, in your office, there may be one promotion, and there are only 2 women in the office, and she's like, I'm not going to let that person get the promotion over me. So they do little things to try to make you look as if you're not the best person for the job. Unfortunately, that happens in the workplace. Does anybody have any recommendations before I give any of how you can deal with that once you find out, if you know it exists? Covert competition in the workplace. And some of you, we're talking about the workplace. Well, let's just keep it real. There are some women who have covert competition with their friendships outside of work. So how do you handle those relationships? There was a word a couple of years ago, some of you may remember, called frenemy. They're your friends, but they're also secretly your enemy. That's an example of covert competition. They're your friends as far as you know, but at the same time, behind the scenes, they're hoping that something bad happens, or they're hoping you're not the one to get married, or you're not the one to get the promotion, or you're not the one to buy the house. Unfortunately, those things happen. We can't pretend like they don't. But how do you deal with those situations if you are that person or if you know someone who is that person? How would you handle it to try to turn that situation around? Caution that's one way, yes. Be very cautious, because sometimes we as women, we want to share too much. And we do that in the workplace too. We tell too much, and I have to admit, I've been guilty too many times to count. We tell too much of what we want to do. We share too much of what our goals are. We share too much of where we're trying to go. And sometimes when you tell too much of your business, you're giving people the ammunition to use against you. Because as we know, you may have that person that you trust, but then they got that person that they trust. And that secret that you've told has already been told to 3 or 4 people because each person has somebody that they trust. So the less you share, the less you got to worry about. But it doesn't all, I know I'm saying really negative things, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I have an employee, she's 100% work from home now, but she wasn't at first when she started working for me. And she grew up at Census. She started here when she was 18. And so as most of you know, I've been at Census now for 4 years. What used to be, my office used to be the Job Rotation Program office. Now it's the Strategic Analysis and Planning office. So when I was doing interviews to staff my office, she was the first person I interviewed. And so she went around asking people, do you know anything about her? And they're like, well, no, she's new. We don't know her. We know she wears nice shoes and she smiles and she always says thank you. And I'm very big on thank yous. Thank yous go a long way. So if you don't say them, you need to start saying them. And we had the interview, and I was just blown away. I had like 26 more people to interview, but she was like the one to beat, right? And I remember when I offered her the job, she said to me, I was a little hesitant to work for you because you were a black woman. And black women tend to have difficulties working with or for other black women. And because I too can relate to that, I made sure I did everything to show her support, to mentor her, to groom her to be a leader, because my philosophy is I'm grooming you to either leave me or push me out the way. And so I gave her everything I could possibly give her to make her the best employee she could possibly be. She was already dynamic and outstanding, but you know, I still needed to give her some things, and she gave me a lot of things. So when her husband's job relocated to some part of Pennsylvania, I said to her, you guys are expecting your first child. Your husband's going to be 5 hours away from you. You need to go be with your husband. And even though I had to move her to 100% work from home, her level of effort was better than some people who were sitting physically here in the office. So what I did was, this person who had her entire career, which at the time had only been from the time of 18 to 30, she had this perception of how difficult it would be to work for a black woman. And because of the relationship we forged with each other, now her perception is totally different. So she no longer sees working for a black woman as a negative thing. She sees it as something positive, because this is a person who's poured into my life. Not only did she care about my career, but she cared about my family. So oftentimes we have these assumptions about people, even in the workplace, our peers. You know, somebody walks in and, you know, they may be going through something and they give you this look and you're automatically assuming, like, why is she looking at me like that? I saw how she was looking at me. But really, it's not even about you. There's something else going on that had absolutely nothing to do with you. So one of the best things you can do is first try to understand one another. Understanding goes a long way. We're so busy making assumptions and judging one another, when none of us are in a position to judge anybody. But we're so busy making assumptions and judging, but we never take the time to have compassion. We never take the time to understand. We never take the time to try to collaborate. So I'm gonna give you another example. When I was a school teacher, I had this principal. She was absolutely the worst principal, I thought. She just came in and she just made life hard for most of us, and most of us being women. She made it hard for us. And I was like, I don't understand why this woman is such, you guys can imagine the word I was thinking, that I'm not going to say. And then one day, somebody told me that her husband was abusing her, and he shot her son in the head. She had no power in the house, so she came to work. That's the only place she felt powerful. Once I understood the dynamics, my entire opinion of her changed. And so that's why I say understanding is so important. Oftentimes what people are giving us that we perceive to be as something negative is really not about us at all. It could be their own issues, their own insecurities, the things that they're going through that you have absolutely no idea. So it's important to have compassion. It's important to have understanding. It's important to not judge. It's important to try to forge relationships and collaborate with one another because we all have to work together. We can't accomplish anything in this working environment without working with somebody else, correct? How much easier is it if it's a positive relationship? You don't have to be best friends. You don't have to hang out outside of work. You don't have to know what's going on in their personal lives. But you do have to have a level of camaraderie and collaboration within the workplace. So, when you hear detox your organization, because I saw everybody, almost 90% of the people raise their hand and said they worked in a toxic environment. When you hear detox your organization, what do you think about it? I'm sorry? Making it better, changing it. What else? I missed it. Cleaning. Okay, what else?
I would say just changing the mindset to people, because that's where it starts a lot of times.
Changing the mindset, yes.
Be a part of the solution.
Absolutely. Being part of the solution. So I remember a meeting last year that probably got me in some trouble because I was meeting with some higher ups, and we were talking about, everyone knows that the Organizational Climate Survey, the second one that's coming out in August, was created by my office. And some of you attended the town hall, and that was last year, where they said the 10 things we're going to move forward on. So I don't want you guys to think nothing came about because of that, because it did. We're still working. I don't want to reveal Johnny's not in here. I would have asked him to share. But in the meeting, one of the higher ups made a comment, and my response to that comment was, how is it that you want the problem to fix the problem? So part of the issue is most people aren't even aware that they're the problem. Most people look at things from the outside, they're not introspective. And so when you're working and collaborating with other women, I want to ask you to be more objective instead of subjective. Because sometimes you may think it's the other person that's the problem, and they're thinking you're the problem. And you know why that is? Because you're not communicating. You spent too much time making assumptions and talking to this person and that person about this person and that person probably told this person that you said something, which is already creating more tension that really didn't need to be there in the first place, because that person that you said something about probably thought you were a great person. And you didn't even know. So, add to the list, communication. It's always easier to go to the person that you think there is an issue with than to go to somebody else. Because all that's going to do is create more chaos in the work environment. And trust me, I know some of these things are easier said than done, so I'm not standing up here making you guys think I got it all together and I do all the right things. I don't. But I'm trying. I recognize that in some situations, I was the problem. Because I made assumptions. Oh, that person doesn't like me. Look how they interact with that person, which is totally different how they interact with me. But what I didn't understand was they had some type of affinity. It may have been they went to the same school, or they attended the same church, or they liked the same activities. So when you have something in common with somebody, you tend to gravitate to them. I made the assumption that because you were not gravitating to me, like you were gravitating to that person, you didn't like me. And that's not always the case. It's just human nature. We gravitate to people we can relate to, right? But think about how much you're missing out on if you're not gravitating to people that you don't have something in common with. See, I'm a lifelong learner. So I like to be in environments where I'm learning. So if you're always interacting with people who are just like you, who are doing the same things you're doing, then it's great. You need to have people who are like you. But you also should have people who can pour into your life. It's very important to have people who can pour into your life. They can make it better. They can give you different experiences. They can share different ideas. Because I tell people, and that's one of the things that I touch on in my next book, when I talk about innovation and collaboration and risk-taking. If everybody in the organization thinks exactly the same, how productive is that organization? What are the chances of change really happening? What are the chances of risk-taking happening? What are the chances of innovation? We hear the words innovation all the time, right? But how much innovation do you see? Because it's usually the same people telling the same story, and they have the same commonalities. I went to Michigan State, or I worked at this other commerce agency, right? They don't welcome what they call outsiders. I've been here 4 years, they still call me an outsider. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with being an outsider. But to them, because you don't think like them and look like them and act like them, some people think it's a negative. But really, it's a positive. Different ideas, different experiences, different backgrounds breeds better results. So I want you guys to start thinking that way when you're interacting or not interacting with women in the work environment. Can you do that?
Sure. Yes.
I don't feel it. Okay, well, I'll try to do that then. If nobody else will try, I'll try. Because again, like I said, I'm guilty. So, based on, because I see them looking at their watch, and I know you guys want to eat, and they have something else going on, so that means my time is up. So, based on some things that I shared, can somebody tell me something that they may do differently in the workplace as it relates to forging or growing a relationship with another woman that you may not have had such a great relationship with in the workplace? Yes.
I won't judge my first impression. I won't judge what's happened in the past. Start again.
Great. No judging. That goes a long way. I mean, think about if you even do that in your personal life. You don't judge people. See, because we sit on our little perch and forget we live in a glass house, and we so quick to pass judgment on other people. So that's great. Not judging goes a long way. Anybody else?
Is he judging if you're right?
Let me find out you're one of those people. I'm not judging you. I know I'm right. I got facts. Sometimes facts are subjective. Yes.
What if you actually come to the person, you have issues with that individual, and you actually telling that person that they have something wrong, and you correct the issue, but the person is not accepting that. And this could be the workplace, this could be anywhere.
True.
Because some people do not like criticism.
We all know that most of us are a little sensitive when we're being criticized. And what I hate the most is when somebody starts out with, please don't take this the wrong way. Because guess what? I've already taken it the wrong way. So you need to find a better way to tell me don't take it the wrong way, because you've already put me in the wrong way category. So sometimes it's good to start out with something positive before you give them something negative. Because oftentimes we're not even aware of what we're doing. So when you share with us, this is what you're doing that you need to change, they're already feeling like, so most people are aware that they have issues. There is a decent number of the population, not 50%, it's much less than that, who are very low on the accountability, self-awareness scale. But most people are aware that there's something going on with them, and they've probably already beat themselves up enough. So when you come to them with highlighting their issues and their deficiencies, it plays on those the mental and emotional parts to them that's already broken. Which is why with Detox Your Life, y'all know I have to plug it